Why don't you do that then?
Ah, we're recording. Well, I shall start again then. So, Quentin has two fabulous brothers and a younger sister, who's also fabulous. He grew up in Leatherhead, Surrey, primarily, went to school at Reigate Grammar School, went to university at Exeter to read philosophy and psychology, which is probably only one better than media studies. But I guess you got a 2-1, did you?
No, I got a working man's 2-2, thank you.
Oh, for God's sake, and I thought you were clever. Right. From there, he went on and got a job with Friends Provident. Basically, our father was in the insurance business, and so he sort of went into the family firm. Who was the company that you left Friends Provident to go to?
It was called John Mathers.
Wasn't it Clarkson Bain or Bain Clarkson?
I went to John Mathers and then I went to Bain Doors as was.
Right. And was it, they got taken over about 2 or 3 times, didn't they?
Well, it became Bain Clarkson, Bain Hogg Robinson. At that point, I got a bit fed up with it all.
Yeah. So, but at that point, he was promoted. He was the youngest manager of a major branch. He took over the Cambridge branch, and he was the youngest manager in the country at that time. But as you just heard, it got taken over about 4 or 5 times in literally 5 or 6 months, and he got a bit fed up, and they were making really bad business decisions. So he left and took the best member of staff with him and 90% of the business, and set up his own independent financial advising company from his home in Burwell.
And I believe he admitted to cooking the books.
Oh, absolutely, all the time, which is just, you know, considering he's a financial advisor. Yeah, we could see that one coming as well, Paul.
Well, hate to disappoint.
He met his wife, Alison, at university, and I'm very happy to say he's still happily married, has 2 lovely boys, Matthew and Ben. What not many people know is that he married an Alison Jane, and obviously she became Alison Jane Cooke, and I married an Alison Jane. And so there were 2 Alison Jane Cookes in the family. And bizarrely, they both grew up in the same parish. So obviously very good hunting ground for the Cooke family. He has an adorable cat called Safi, about 6 chickens.
Yeah.
Lives in a beautiful old farmhouse in Burwell in Cambridgeshire. And when he showed me around the house that he either just bought or was thinking of buying, there was a barn attached to the house, and we both sort of went, oh my God, you could have your own dojo. It didn't have a floor, it barely had a ceiling, but that was the first thing I was thinking, buy this place, it's fantastic. He's always enjoyed sports. He's pretty handy at squash, badminton, table tennis, pretty well anything with a racket. He's fiendish at table football, and he likes to play golf.
He's not very good at that, though.
I didn't say you were. So, well, let's start the questions, Quen. Let's clear up one thing once and for all. Who's the older brother, you and me?
I think we all know you're the older brother.
No, they're probably, I can see the shock on their faces. There's bewilderment.
Well, I believe you introduced me to Aikido as my younger brother, obviously. But...
there you go. And also, a lot of people have asked, who's your favorite brother?
I know this really nice bloke at the local church, and he's
good answer. Very good answer. Okay, so maybe a proper question. What brought you to Aikido? And as a supplementary, why do you continue when so many people give up after a few weeks?
Well, you brought me to Aikido. I've literally just been doing a video about how I came to Aikido. And if you recall, you were opening the club with Bob Fletcher. And what do you do on the first night to get people on the mat? You get friends and family in. So I showed up, and pretty much I've been showing up ever since. The why is because I felt a strong affiliation with the philosophy of Aikido. It was very principle-based, and those principles were things that I tried to live my life by anyway, and it just seemed a natural marriage, if you like. Yeah, that's what's kept me going.
And have you ever done any other form of martial art?
I did a little bit of judo at university, but that was really for sport and sheer pluck, really. I had Steve Dell, if you remember Steve Dell.
I do indeed.
Well, he was about 16 stone and I was about 11, so sparring with him was a challenge. I had the speed, he rather had the size.
Yeah. And do you remember what you did when I came down to, I think it was an extra ball, and pre the ball? Can you remember what happened in I think the living room?
No.
A challenge that you set me with the sofa?
No. Should I?
Yes, I think you should. It's been engraved on my mind. If you remember, the sofa had open wooden handles or armrests at either end.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember what the challenge was?
I've got a feeling you might have had to crawl through it.
That's correct. And what happens when you get through one end and not quite through the second end?
I'm guessing you might get stuck.
And what happened then?
I have no idea.
I got attacked by you bastards.
Well, I wasn't doing Aikido then. I wasn't.
No, I know. And so with no arms and legs, I was completely at your power. That's why I took Aikido up.
Yeah.
Obviously, we both started with Ken Williams. And so he was obviously a significant influence to both of us, I'm sure. He gave us a pretty good foundation, I think. Which other teachers stand out in your mind, and for what reason? And actually, what did he give to you?
I think he gave a really brilliant foundation, and you have to acknowledge Bob Fletcher before that. So Ken Williams was Bob Fletcher's teacher, but Bob was the one passing it on a week-by-week basis. So I think we started in Ki Aikido, and I think that was a huge advantage personally, because I think it gives 50% sort of focusing on the mind and 50% on the body. And personally, I think that's the way Aikido is supposed to be. It's integrating those two arts, and neither one should dominate. Whereas I think most styles tend to focus more on the physical and they miss out a bit. I think it was an advantage.
Yeah.
As to who else?
So what did he give you? What did you think about Ken Williams? Because not many people know him, and actually Ken Williams really is the founding father of Aikido in the UK. I mean, he was Abe Sensei's first assistant, and not many people are aware of him. What do you think he gave you?
Inspiration, because he was incredible to watch when he was in full flow. When you talk to him one-to-one, he was very, very down to earth, especially in the early years, not so much in the later years. I think he just solidified that grounding in sort of 4 principles of coordination of mind and body, and 5 principles of practicing Aikido. I think they reached a point though where he stopped providing any new information, and that's kind of why I moved on in the end.
So if you remember, I left about a year before you. How did you find that time when I had moved? Because he was yes, go on, just tell people what happened then.
Well, it wasn't easy, because you had written a letter that basically told him where you thought he was going wrong, and you were right on most of those points. But you weren't around to sort of beat. I was. I was singled out on the map, really, and all my cadre of people who had started Aikido at the same time, they all pointedly got graded up, and I didn't, which didn't really. It wasn't the fact that I didn't get the grade; it was just the fact that I was singled out that seemed a bit childish, really.
And was that the reason ultimately why you left?
I think I got graded up in the end before I left, so I still hung on. But in the end, I thought, well, I wrote a letter saying much the same as you did, but probably slightly less aggressive in tone.
I was going to say you were a bit more diplomatic.
possibly a bit more diplomatic. And I got paddled again for having dared to speak up, and having dared to put it in a letter, which I thought actually would give them time to think about it. as opposed to sort of doing it face to face. They did implement quite a few of the things after that, funnily enough, but by then I was kind of a bit ritzed off with the way I was being treated. So
yeah. And who else has influenced you? That was the second part of the question. So what other teachers stand out in your mind?
Well, you and I working together is a huge part of that journey. So you have to be mentioned in that list. And really, I've borrowed from so many people. I mean, we've been lucky enough, especially with when we formed ADL, to meet some amazing people on our journey. And the first part of that sort of bit outside of the Key Federation was going to the International Aikido Convention in Las Vegas. Jamie, you'll remember that. And meeting the likes of Jamie and Kayla Federer and just being blown away by what I was seeing. But on that particular day, it was Frank Dora, and he was terribly impressive, and I took something from him. And we've had Linda Holiday over, and we've had Kimberly Richardson over, and we've had Mary Heine over, to name but a few. Yoshi Shibata, I think, is a great teacher. I've enjoyed working with Shemek. I think I take little bits from everybody, but I have to say that really the most influential is just working with my students. You know, it's true. It is true. All my experiments take place on them in class. I don't know if they're going to work. You need honest ukes and honest students to feedback whether it's, you know, what you're doing is heading in the right direction or not. And I think I've been very lucky over the years to have people like Nikos and before him James, who were incredibly helpful in letting me do that.
There was another time, I think, for me, when you went to America. Tell us the story about you when you offered some private lessons as a prize, and explain that, because that for me was the beginning of your international networking.
Well, it was an absolutely incredible story. So as part of the board of directors for Aikido Extensions, we decided we needed to get some new members. So the board at that time more or less all offered various things as prizes to get people who signed up that month they possibly could win. So I offered private lessons or a seminar. And then after the draw happened, I got this contact from a lady in America who happened to be linked to Richard Strozzi Heckler's dojo. And she said, well, I've kind of won this prize, and I'm really thrilled because I've never won anything before. And I'm thinking to myself, really, 2 Rock near San Francisco, that sounds like a long way to do private lessons or possibly give a seminar. Also knowing the dojo was run by Richard Strozzi Heckler, who's a brilliant teacher, I wasn't sure that politically having this stranger come in and offer a seminar when he's probably far more experienced than me was terribly appropriate. So I basically said, well, look, you know, you are so welcome to come to me if you want to, and I'll put you up, and you know, whatever you want, whatever works for you. And she said, well, actually, I've got loads of air miles. Why don't you come to me and we'll do a tour of all the local sensei? And there are some amazing names in that neck of the wood. So I said, pardon? She said, well, would you like to come? You can stay at my house and we'll go around. I said, look, this is supposed to be your prize, not mine. But she said, no, it'll be really good because you'll be able to open doors to get me into these places where it's awkward for me just because you've got rank and you're also on the board of directors for Aikido Extension. So I kind of shrugged my shoulders and said, okay. So I went out there and I had a really amazing time. We did go to Richard Strozzi Heckler's. We went to Wendy Palmer. We went to Frank Duran's dojo. We met Bob Frager. We went to Bob Nadeau. We went to Linda Holiday. And there were others. But I had about 10 days out there and it was absolutely stunning. And yeah, mind-blowing, really. And she was a brilliant hostess and we just got on really, really well. The thing that really came out of that was chatting to Bob Frager and him saying, you know, it's a real pity that the stories that come out of Aikido are not recorded. And literally, I remember thinking, I'm going to do that. And that's how the book A Way to Reconcile the World started. His idea, but I then started collecting stories from all over the world, from the great and the good. And I'm really, I just love having been able to do that.
Which is your favorite story and why?
It's Paul's story about using Parkinson's as his okay.
Funnily enough, I read that the other night. I thought you might say that one.
Well, obviously I know Paul, and that makes a difference. I had a huge amount of respect for him anyway, but I just thought it was inspirational, and he writes well as well. That helps. Yeah, it was just a great story.
When's book 2 coming out?
Haha. Well, when you lot send me the stories, so I've got about half of what I need. And it's fair to say I haven't really tantarad about it that much of late, but it will happen. But I do need people to send me stories. You can't produce a book without the stories.
And do you know how many copies of the book have been sold?
I don't, because a lot of them get downloaded from Amazon. But I still regularly see sales happening. And I think a lot more people read it than I actually realise. An ex-student in Germany said, that a lot of people at Hertogia really liked the book. I'm thinking, really? I'm not aware of any sales in Germany, so it's just really difficult to track.
Fair enough. Laura would like to know how you met Paul.
Okay. So a big IKEA Extensions course was organised in Dudley by Mark Walsh. And he was bringing across Don Levine and Jose Bueno from Brazil and Paul. And we had...
that was the one in Birmingham, wasn't it?
Yeah. We had Terry Ezra there. There was a guy from Germany there. I mean, we had an amazing array of teachers. And you and I think, were just going along as sort of, guests. Fair enough. I think I did teach something, but we were certainly not star turns by any manner. There were a lot of big names there. And Paul was doing a session on, I'm not quite sure what, I can't remember now, but I'd heard
Neither can I.
So I went along and I was listening to this and thinking, well, the words are completely different, but the ideas are exactly the same as what I learned in Ki Aikido. And I went up to him afterwards and said, do you know what? You teach exactly the same stuff as me, but we're using a completely different language. And I think that was the beginning of a good friendship.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
I remember actually that you did Paul's session and I chose to do someone else's, and you sang his praises. And I was thinking, shit, I really missed out there. That was a really good course. And that was where we... what's his name? Bueno did the kids, and I do that all over. It's such good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an example of beg, borrowing, and stealing wherever you go. That's certainly a thing I took and I use regularly as well.
Yeah, fantastic. You mentioned IKEA Extensions, and a little while back I went onto the site just when I actually renewed, which is about last month, I think, and there were only 43 individual members listed. Why do you think that is? 43. I mean, it's ludicrous.
Wow, that's a toughie, and it really saddens me. I think we've had many more members over the years. I think somewhere along the way, as a group, even though we were doing good stuff, we lost a little bit of faith in people. Lost a bit of faith in us. They couldn't see what we were doing necessarily. Also, I mean, some schools really struggled with the fact that we were reaching across borders and, they weren't allowed to have anything to do with anyone, even though we're not doing Aikido on the mat. A bit daft, really. Internationally, I think you could say it's difficult for, say, someone in the UK to sign up and pay in dollars in the States. I don't think that's helpful. And I think really people want to know, well, they want something out of it. For me, it was good enough to know that good work was being done. So if I were a member, I'd be saying, well, okay, how have you spent my money? And we haven't really been very good at publicizing that. We will. We're just getting accounts done that will put us in a position where we can do that. So we can say we're actually spending it on projects and not on admin staff or whatever. And I think once we start doing that and we start showing the projects we're supporting, that will make a big difference.
Because I mean, I think if it doesn't start going up, it's going to die.
I would say, I mean, that's been, you could say that really in the last, that's been the case for some years now. I would say recent energy suggests we're definitely heading in the right direction. There's a real pickup of late in terms of things we're getting involved with, people we're getting connected to. So I think probably we got 2 other members of the board here and 1 ex-member. I think we would be quite hopeful about what the future holds for us.
Have you thought, well, you haven't really publicized it within the British Aikido Board, that's the governing body in the UK. My feeling would be you should do that, because if you got their buy-in, then perhaps then you would get more exposure. And perhaps in America, if I don't know how many associations there are there, you've got to go to the main associations and get their buy-in, surely.
Yeah, I'm certainly open to that. I mean, over the years, I've written quite a lot of articles in Aikido Journal or whatever. What's it called? The magazine for the BAB?
Aikido Times.
I've written quite a lot of articles in there, and I have promoted Aiki Extended and events like that. And as you know, actually, I always get good take-up from across the UK. It's not just ADL students that show up. A lot of other people show up. But there seems to be poor translation. And again, people have been on that course. They know people who have been on it who are incredibly enthusiastic, but they don't sign up.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Apart from your biannual event, which it's a shame because we were going to have one this year, and it's always been a highlight, I think, in the biannual calendar. Do you know anybody else doing anything?
I don't think anybody's doing an event quite like that. I mean, we have AA's held conferences in America which have elements of it. We have people talking as well as doing traditional sessions, but 3 mats going at once, always covering off topic, covering things that are related to Aikido but not Aikido. I don't think anybody's doing anything like that. There are other international events where there are multiple teachers, just nothing with the format that I'm offering.
Okay. Do you think they should be?
Yeah, definitely. Simply because everybody who comes is always blown away by it. And surprisingly, it's a bit difficult to pull the whole of America and the whole of Europe over to the UK. I've been really lucky to get as many people from those places as I have. But obviously, if you did it in those localities, you'd put a completely different audience in.
Because when we went to Belgium with Christian, and to Germany with, was it Bruno? Bertram. They were great events. And I think it's just a shame that there aren't other European venues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something I'd like Shemek to maybe think about doing at some stage. I think it would be great if you did that.
So we all know that you spend quite a lot of time doing Aikido, and you are the chairman of our association, and you're on the board of Aiki Extensions, and you've published the book, and you're now looking at publishing an Aikido University course. What's the cost been to your family life? What I was going to say is, how has it benefited the family to Aikido and Aikido to the family?
So I think that I live a pretty full life, which on the whole is very balanced between the need to produce income for me and the family, between being there for my family, and finding time for me. And that is Aikido, fishing, golf, whatever. And on the whole, I think I've negotiated that fairly well. But there are times where I've strayed across the border and maybe done a bit too much Aikido or a bit too much fishing or work. Alison's never moaned about the amount of work I've done, but you know, and I've just had to rein it back a bit. And I think it's actually part of my training. It is part of Aikido in daily life to get that balance right between making sure that the people you care for are looked after and you don't spend too much time just caring for yourself. I think that's real practice and a real tough practice at times.
I apologize, but as I said, I have to leave for a 2:30.
No problem, Paul.
Session.
I'm going to see if you want to join us back. We may just still be talking.
Okay, good. I hope so.
See you on.
Perhaps the immeasurable is how it's influenced my parenting style and indeed my relationship with Alison. I would say it's played a big part. So if I'm not having a great time with Alison, that weighs very heavily on me, and I have to refer back to Aikido principles maybe to think where I went wrong and how to put it right. And I think very much it's guided my parenting style in terms of respecting my boys even when they were small and giving them space and listening to them, but setting sensible border lines, etc. I can't quantify how that's worked, but I think they both turned out pretty well and never really given me any cause for deep concern. So I've been incredibly lucky.
I think we've both been very lucky with our kids. Does it disappoint you that out of the 4 of our children between us, only Jake has decided to go all the way to get a black belt?
Disappoint's the wrong word. It would have been lovely if the boys had wanted to practice Aikido, but that's about respecting their passions and what they want to do, and I never would have ever tried to force them onto the mat.
No, so, that's not what I was saying. I knew.
So no, it's not a disappointment. It's they're making their way in life, and I'm proud of what they're doing. That's good enough.
Yeah, good answer. So apart from the sex and the drugs, why is Aikido still important to you after all these years?
Oh boy, there's something that burns deep inside me that says, Jesus, this is such a powerful message. The world will be so much better if they could take it on board and use it. And I just feel this need to pass that message on. And I've always said that the touch phrase for me in Aikido is a way to reconcile the world, that Aikido is a way to reconcile the world. And I believe that. But I also believe that O-Sensei could never have imagined that the whole world would step onto the mat. So he must have had a vision of people taking what we learn on the mat off it into everyday life. So I find that immensely reassuring, really. And I think that is our job. That is our job, to translate these principles in ways that make a difference in all elements of society without the need to flip people around.
Do you still have an Aikido goal? And if so, what is it?
I think I won't know if I've ever reached it, but it would be nice if after I'm gone, people said, wow, he did an incredible job about spreading the word and look at his achievements. But, it's very hard for me to assess that. And it would be nice. As you're my younger brother, perhaps you'll be around to tell me.
I will, don't worry. But you didn't answer the question. I agree with exactly what you said.
Well, I don't have any ambitions in terms of rank.
No, not so much in rank.
What?
In terms of, we're on a journey, and do you think you know where the destination is? Because I'm not sure I do.
I think it's one of those journeys where you can see the direction you need to head, but you never ever reach it. Actually, I think you just keep putting one step in front of the other. And you could say that, these sessions actually have been one step on that journey. It's not something I'd have done pre-COVID, I don't think. But actually, I'm quite proud of how fun they've been and the kind of community we've built through it. I would never have thought to do an online course, but actually, I'm being really wowed about putting it together and getting it out there and seeing how that goes down. Because as you do it, you kind of recognize, oh, I actually do know something quite useful here, and that's very makes me feel good. But no, I think it's just about trying to do the right thing more often and the wrong thing less often, feeling more and more at peace with yourself and those around you, really. I think that's the destination.
I'd go along with that. Dan's got an important question. He wants to know, do you think that Chelsea will win tonight?
I probably ought to say no, I don't. Much as I'd like them to.
Who are they playing?
Man City.
Oh, you got no chance. I had a follow-on question, and Dan, you've completely thrown me off now. That's a shame. No, I'll resort to one of your questions, Quentin. In terms of on the journey, what are you working on at the moment? Is there anything specifically that you're trying to achieve at this moment in time?
Well, it's really, really difficult if you've got no bodies to play with. That's for sure. So right now, what am I working on? It's finding ways to pass on the message or the learning in media that we've never used before. You know, so I made a very, very definite decision right at the start of these online sessions that I was not going to do Bock and Carter or warm-up exercises. I didn't want to do that. I think it's a mind-body art, and we get plenty of time to do the body bit on the mat. And even if you focus like I do on Aikido in daily life, you get lost in the technique a bit. Now's the time to start exploring the ideas for me. And I think being creative about that has been a piece of growth. And that's given me the confidence to do the Aikido course, the university course on leadership. So my energies are in finding creative ways to, so I'm talking about embodied leadership and experiential learning, where, you know, you're actually grabbing people saying, see what happens when you think this compared to that. And I have to do that online and pass that information across in a way that they can actually still feel those things. So that's a stretch.
So, you know, I set up Caddy Consulting with Maggie, and I was looking over the material the other day because of the applied Aikido guys. And actually, I was rather shocked to see that I wrote and designed courses for Unilever. They had 10 courses for their management training, and we wrote 3 of them. We were doing work for the NHS, and we were doing work for one of the international estate agents, King Sturge, which really surprised me. Tell people about the work that you've been doing. I think it's with Toyota, isn't it?
Well, I was going to do with Toyota.
Well, you did one course, and they were going to book you up for a number of others before.
Well, we started the program, but I wasn't actually teaching that one. I was sharing it with another guy in the UK, David Ellard. And so the next one was mine, and that's when COVID locked it down, and so I've not been able to do that yet.
So what were you going to do?
It was, if you like, a shortened form of my business dojo day for leadership training. So we had about an hour and a half, whereas really I like to give it 6 hours. So it's a taster session, really, zeroing in on key principles within Aikido that you could let them feel and would make a difference and get some points across. So it would have been a bit like you having Unilever on the list of names you've done business for. It would have been a great thing to be able to put on the CV. But if I'm honest, I don't think it would change the world, not immediately, simply because they're not treating it seriously enough. They're filling in a lot of the stuff behind it.
Yeah, Another big name I did a load of work for was Louis Vuitton, and it was the same thing. I did 2-hour sessions, and really, I felt it was more like giving them a paintball session. You know, it was entertainment rather than growth. Although they did say it went down very well. So, what do you do in your 6-hour business dojo?
Mm-hmm.
What does that cover? And where would you like that to go?
Okay, so remember, I'm wanting to take Aikido training out into the world. And I think one of the areas that I think is a bit sick is the business world. I don't think the ethics in big business is all we would want it to be. There are all sorts of issues where they just need to get better. Money is the short-term goal, and they never think about the long-term consequences. So I think getting Aikido values into big businesses would make quite a difference. It also has one massive attribute, which is that I offer sessions of 2 hours for £5 at the dojo, and frankly, you can buy a portion of chips for that these days. Well, you probably could, but not much more than that. You wouldn't get the piece of fish with it, at least. I don't do it for money, and I don't want to charge people a lot of money. I'm happy to do it for nothing if people can't afford it. But if you went along to big business and said, I'm offering you this for free, they wouldn't buy it.
No.
They wouldn't even open the door. So it gave me a legitimate reason to follow my passion and maybe be able to move away from financial services and follow my heart a bit more.
And so what do you cover in the course?
Well, if it's leadership, you're focusing on how to get the best out of yourself. So we're focusing on the 4 principles of coordinating mind and body. I can go over those if people want. But you can always buy the course that I'm putting together for Aikido University because it's all in there. And then the 5 principles for practice when you're getting the most out of others, if you like. So translating those Aikido rules into everyday relationships. And then just pointing out things like how we're not very embodied anymore. You know, we use lots of phrases that are linked to language, and we say them, but we don't actually think why we say them. And we all sit behind computer screens and click a button these days. And I think we need to put people more in touch with their bodies if we really want a balanced human being. We also do things like, you know, take an issue that maybe they faced that didn't go so well, and then make them play those rules out and, you know, replay the situation, but taking advantage of the rules they've learned. So it covers a fair bit of ground.
Great stuff. So has anybody else, I mean, I've got more questions, but has anybody else got any questions that they would like to pose to Quentin? I don't want to hog the whole session.
Looks like it's over to you, bro.
Yeah, it does.
I could ask one.
Good stuff. Morag first, then Robert.
I was just wondering if, Quentin, you have any regrets about things that you did do, or maybe opportunities that you didn't take?
With regard to Aikido, or just in life in general?
With regard mainly to Aikido, but how that impacts on life in general.
No, I don't really have any regrets. There are quite a few things that I've ended up doing that were certainly not on my list of things that I ever thought I would do or had any great desire to do, but just found myself in situations where it was that or really have a miserable time. So it was never my desire to leave the first organisation I went to, Sensei Williams Key Federation of Great Britain. But it didn't sit comfortably with the way it was being run compared with the values we were taught on the mat. The same happened at Ishinkai. I had the idea of starting an association, frankly, seemed like madness. You know, why would you do that? But again, I found myself with Piers backed into a place where there didn't seem to be many other options that wouldn't end up in the same place. So we did it, and I certainly don't regret that. I think that's been a fabulous thing to do. You know, the first time I was invited to do Aiki extensions and be on the board of that, I'm thinking, oh no, that's going to be a load of work. I really don't want to do that. but I did, and it has been a load of work, but it's been a fabulous adventure and been incredibly rich. So much has sprung from that. Just ripple after ripple, and it still keeps going outwards. It's just incredible. So whatever happens on an organizational level, on a personal level, it's just been fabulous. And those of you who have been associated with me have all benefited from that and know something of what I'm talking about, because you've been with me on that journey for part of, if not all of the way. So no, I can't think of anything I really regret on my Aikido journey. There have been tough periods, but I think you learn from that.
Robert, over to you.
All right. So I was wondering, if you were to wake up tomorrow morning at 10 Downing Street or 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, what would all of your Aiki experiences lead you to do first?
Oh my goodness. Oh, Lordy Lord. What I would want to do and what I could do may be two different things. But I have to say, I think it's fairly obscene that people become billionaires. Makes no sense to me. I think, I'd cap it out at 10 million, and after that, tough luck. It all goes back into the pool for everyone else. And if that dissatisfies you, there will be some young buck who 10 million is quite good enough. So I'd quite like to, if I could get away with that, I would. I think I'd want to put Aikido learning into schools. I'd like to put all sorts of learning into schools that was actually useful. So I'm a financial advisor, yet people leave school and they have not a clue about money in everyday life. How mad is that? Well, who wants to know about physics? You forget it within 5 minutes, or whatever subject you did at school that was of absolutely no interest and you can't remember any of it off. And I can't remember 95% of what I was taught, probably more than that. So wouldn't it be great if we taught our kids practical stuff? And I think Aikido ethics and values would be a brilliant start. Financial education would be great. Getting kids to have a better set of values when it comes to all sorts of equality issues. We're really reaping the whirlwind right now. That would be brilliant. There is a bit of hope there, I think, in that I look at my children and they really don't see colour or have any issues on any of those sort of equality issues. They just see people. I think I'm pretty good, but I think our generation has to work a little bit harder. My parents definitely were worse than we were, and the parents before them, I think, would have been worse again. So I just think over time we're getting better.
But we call that evolution, Quentin. I even said that to Dad before he died, and he initially started getting really angry. I said, "Hold on, do you think you're better dad than Granddad?" He said, "Of course I am." I said, "Well, I think I'm a better dad than you. And I tell you what, I think Jake's going to be a better dad than me, and that's evolution."
I think it is evolution, but we can push it. We can create circumstances that help it happen quicker.
Yeah. A question that, two questions I've got. This came from Laura and Nick is not happy about don't teach physics, by the way.
Sorry, Nick.
But they also sent me a question, Laura sent me a question saying, of what are you most proud? And I've got a few things that I've listed. So what Aikido related event are you most proud? I put down being graded by Maruyama Sensei to 7th Dan, getting the book published, being on the board of Aiki Extensions, co-founder of Aikido for Daily Life, running your own dojo, or something else.
Of those, I think founding the association comes up very high, because that was a really tough choice to make. But I think it's a game changer in terms of how we do our business in ADL compared to most Aikido associations. I think it's the way that things will evolve in time. The book, yes, I'm very proud of that. And the Aiki extended events, I'm very proud of that, because I think that's unique.
So pretty well everything on the list. That doesn't.
No, I don't really care about the grading so much. I think one man's 7th dan is another person's yellow belt. So, you know, it's opened doors for me, and that's been brilliant. But you know, who knows? And as you know, after we left, I was told, well, we didn't own those grades anymore. So,
yeah. Another one from Laura. Has Aikido ever helped you get through a very challenging time in your personal life? And if so, are you prepared to share it and tell us how it helped?
I honestly can't think of anything incredibly dramatic that I can share. I mean, I can't honestly remember anything, so it's not like I wouldn't share it if I did. But I think it's been a touchstone and a guiding light for so many years that I don't really realize how it helps me sail through life with fairly minimal issues. I've learned to really trust my instincts, and they've worked out pretty well for me on the whole.
Yeah, he was the golden child, Laura. He hasn't ever had any challenging times.
Yes, I've had challenging times, but not in terms of course I have, but not in terms of, you know, I think to myself, oh, that happened and Aikido saw me through. There's been nothing like that, really. I suppose, I mean, when Dad died, that was a challenging time. And in a way, Aikido saw me through because the club were incredibly supportive, and that was a huge help. So yeah, there's a case.
I have to say, if you asked me that question, Laura, I would say when I went through my divorce, unbelievable. I learned so much, and I definitely relied on the club and the principals, and that definitely helped me. So, so how do we get the message out to the world, Quent?
Oh boy.
What are we all doing wrong? Why can't we get that bloody message out to the world?
Why can't we? Because most of the Aikido community don't talk about it. It isn't Aikido for them. It's as clear as the nose on my face as far as I'm concerned, but I think the vast majority, I mean, you know, I was on Paul's session the other day, and we were talking about this exact same question, weren't we, Patrick? And I said to everybody who was on that call, well, okay, we were quite an experienced group here. How many of you have been on a course with all those sensei over the year? Whoever says anything about Aikido off the mat or relates the principles that we learn on the mat with what we do off the mat? And it's pretty much a universal zero. Well, if the big names aren't doing it, and most of us kind of only bother showing up at the big names these days, you know, then that's sad. I mean, people like Yoshi do it, and there are plenty of examples of people who I think live it, but they don't explicitly teach it on the mat. So I think that's a real problem. Until people start teaching it, it won't become the accepted message. Meantime, I just got to keep banging my drum and hoping some people pay attention.
Linda,
and others on this call are doing the same.
Linda, you've got a question. Do you want to unmute and ask it yourself?
Sure, I have a real easy lowball one for you. What kind of chickens do you have?
There's a question. Well, they're all bantams. I have a couple of Polands. I have a Faverolles. I have a Pekin. I have one that's named after a place in Italy which I've forgotten. And there's one other, I think. They're a mixed bunch. I only get them if they're pretty.
Thank you. Do you keep them for eggs or just to keep the bugs down?
I get them, the eggs is nice, but they're like an aquarium outside. So if you sit outside, there's always life in the garden. It's just fun. Yeah, they're just fun.
Nice. Thank you.
So,
as I said in the chat, I have some ideas on increasing membership that I've the ones I spoke to you about, but I've written them up and I'll send you that.
Linda, your name is marked down as somebody we're going to call on. Don't you worry, I've already passed it on.
Okay.
So what's the message you give when someone comes in through the door, you know, a new beginner, and you go, "Yoo-hoo, I've got a new beginner." What is it you say to them to try and encourage them to enjoy it and stay, or what is it what's the message?
The message, I think, is probably given before they arrive, because it's all over the website what I'm trying to do here. So I think most people who show up at Burwell have come here for a reason. They know what they're getting. And I just try to make sure that what I say on the website is consistent with the way they get treated and the way we practice at the club. I'm incredibly proud of how warm and friendly we are, how nobody tries to be the bigger it. Over the years, we've had a really good ratio of men to women, and I think that's something I'm very proud of. We've had all sorts of nationalities. It's been open to that, and I think that's been a great strength. Yeah, it's just being consistent with everything I'm trying to stand up for. And it starts somewhere, you know, so the first time in the mat, you start, you know, teaching them those first 4 principles of coordinating mind and body, and it goes from there.
Has anyone else got any questions they would like to ask Quentin?
He's running out now.
Sorry?
He's running out now.
No, I've got loads to go. I just don't want to hog it. I mean, there's about 5 minutes to go if we adhere to the schedule. So I'm sure other people must have burning things that they want to ask you. Yeah, Siv.
Quentin, do you think that the times you've found that you've, instead of using what a lot of people rely on that they get from religion, you've taken those sort of values from Aikido?
In a way, so I think most major religions have a moral code that go with them, and they're not that dissimilar to Aikido. If you take Aikido, you respect other people. It seems to be is a big thing, isn't it? And that's sort of core to Aikido. I don't really subscribe to any particular religious school. I think they have good values, but the fact that there are so many of them and it's been a cause of so much war kind of turns me off. I actually I have my own views. I think there's more likely to be a God than not, but anyone that smites you down is not a God I want to recognize, really. So I reckon the job is to do the best you can on this planet. And if there is a God, he'll look after you. And if there isn't, it won't matter, because I'll have had a better life as a result of it. And that's literally, that is my religion, to make the most of what I am. So however I was created, whatever abilities I have, whatever weaknesses I have, is to try and eliminate the weaknesses and build on the strengths and make a difference to me and quality of life I have, but hopefully to the quality of life of the people that I touch.
Good question, Sid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others? Jamie, I've never known you to be so quiet. I think she's working.
I've been listening.
She's working. She's not listening at all.
I've listened to everything. I heard it all. I heard all about it. It's fun to watch you two. I'm getting a little bit of the, Chris and Andrew Cuomo show. It's kind of fun.
I just want to put right that at no time did I ever think that this interview would be one where you thought I didn't love Quentin. We get on like a house on fire.
Yes.
I thought that was really
that, yeah.
You even suggested it. I think that was just part of the marketing.
Yeah. Well, I've been enjoying watching since we first met back in Las Vegas at the Aiki Expo, so hard to believe it's almost 20 years. So it's been fun to, kind of watch. And when you were in California, that was quite a trip for sure. An amazing story. And how much has led to how much, and how much Aiki Extensions, in fact, has been an incredible connection and doorway and portal, and I think the number of members in Aiki Extensions belies first of all, the participation, second of all, the significance, and third of all, as Quentin is the first one to say, and I appreciate him saying it, is what an enormous difference, it's made in his life and his Aikido and the opportunities. And, we're all here. I'm here, we're here because we've met that a ways. And Laura and Nikos, and then coming to Aiki Extending and going to TAB and training across borders, and just so many things. And I think that that's so important. And I think that the richness in Aikido and in taking Aikido into the business world or into, other aspects of work, so I've, obviously appreciated all the things that, that Quentin's been doing and working together, and also just so much that's possible, in our Aikido. And even right now with COVID, we're getting together in ways we haven't gotten together, and we aren't quite so focused on exact, dojo training. And so this is the time to really expand our Aikido in so many more dimensions and put our energies into, to your question about how do we make the world different? How do we make it better? How do we make Aikido more known and more impactful? And the way we do it is by going there into the world as Aikidoists with all this great stuff that we've got. So, I think that's what's going on. And, I appreciate doing that together, hand in hand, and putting that out there.
I must say,
on this call alone, we've got people from Greece, Canada, and America who I would never have met, I don't think, if I hadn't followed the path that I had. And actually, I know so many people, and, so the work isn't always recognized. I'm literally at the moment putting together a little group in Australia and New Zealand. It started with one and it grew to two, and now there's three, and they're all interested in the work we're doing. And if it wasn't for the fact that I am fairly well connected, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I've been contacted by people on numerous occasions where they say, do you happen to know? And actually I do, through the book, through Aiki Extensions, through the travel. And that's something I'm pretty proud of.
And we're connecting now with, I've really reached out to the Aikido University people. And so we've connected now with Aiki Extensions, and we're starting to work hand in hand there. And now Quentin's making a course, so am I, so is Robert. These things all happen, and they happen because we show up and because we recognize the opportunities and the places that we can really, extend our connections, extend our work, extend our creativity, extend our Aikido, and to help make Aikido what it all that it is and all that it can be, especially in this sick world that we're medicine for.
I must admit, the one thing I'm very appreciative of is Quentin's networking skills and social media skills, because I sort of did on his coattails in terms of he makes the contacts and then I feel I benefit from them. But it was interesting, Christian said the other day, I didn't really know anything about you. You just hide behind Quentin. And I thought that was really interesting. Probably quite appropriate given the amount of work he does. So,
except Piers, you've been able to travel a couple times that Quentin hasn't. So you made it to TAB. You made it to Germany.
That's true.
Almost made it.
Quentin went to Germany.
Yeah, I disgraced myself, if you remember.
But also I did get to, I went to Linda Holiday's, one of her summer seminars, which was a great experience. And I wouldn't have done that.
Problem getting to Canada.
Yeah, yes, I wouldn't have done that unless it had been Quentin. And we talk with great fondness about the wonderful American women, Jamie. So you need to know that. I mean, I think you and the wonderful American Californian women are a great influence for Aikido. So we need more of you, really.
Here. And I just want to say, Jamie, while we've got a moment, how brilliant the weekend course was with all the women teachers. It was absolutely exemplary. And talking about putting Aikido into the wider world, that was a really shining example of how to do it. So thank you all.
Thank you. It was great seeing you there. And yeah.
Okay, well, we've got our hour. He's probably exhausted now and needs a beer. Unless anyone else has got any other questions, I think we will end it. So thank you very much for...
I want to say something.
Yeah, please do.
Piers. It's not a question, it's just a comment that it was mentioned about Ki Aikido, and I want to say that many years ago, when my sensei, my previous sensei, was still alive, and it was the first time that through him, Quentin was invited to Greece for the first time for a seminar, and I remember that's where we met him for the first time. And I reckon that in Aikido practice, it was the first time that in a Greek dojo, Ki Aikido was taught.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then through that, I've met Dimitra and I've done Tab. And
right. And then you came over a few years later,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So I must admit, for me as the elder and obviously wiser brother, it's been a wonderful journey. I think we're incredibly lucky, and I think long may it continue. So thanks, Gwen, for being brave enough to put yourself out there.
Thank you.
And I think,
thank you.
And thanks everybody for attending, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you. Thank you,
great.
Quentin.
Thank you. And
Thanks, Quentin. Thank you, Piers.
it made my life much richer, so thank you for that too.
That's a pleasure. Cheers all.
Turn off record. I'll get it off you later.
Record, yes, okay.
Yeah.
It was fun. Thank you.